Hey everybody, this is Rod Meldon, the Book of Mormon Evidence guy, and we have a really great show for you today. We're going to be actually doing something a little bit different. We're going to be joined in the studio here with my good friend, cohort, and fellow traveler. This is Bril Hernandez.
Hello,
Bril,
everyone.
We've got him all set up over there, so we can do that. It's actually a lot more fun to actually have somebody to kind of talk to or talk with as we're sharing some things. What I want to do is actually to show you guys a little bit about what has been happening this year. It's just been a whirlwind of a year. We've had tons of stuff going on. We're just going to kind of just do a recap of what was going on there. I'll also tell you a little bit about what's coming up in 2025 in the future for what we're doing here in the research here at Book of Mormon Evidence. So we're going to just jump in and just dive right into it. Brill was actually with me on most of these excursions, but I want to just start off. Actually, beginning of the year was a really interesting time because we started off with an invitation by the Heartland Research Group to go back to Washington D.C. and meet with the ambassador of Tunisia, and this is Russ Barlow and I, and the lady in between there is not the ambassador of Tunisia. This is Arish. And she is from Tunisia, but she's the one that actually set up the meeting. And here is some of us there at the home of the ambassador.
Yeah, that was the home of the ambassador. That was actually really cool to be there.
Yeah, and you can actually that's John Lefgren right there in the front on the just next to me. We've got a guy who's we imported him from the 1800s to come in and.
Oh yeah, the guy to your left. That's right.
Yeah. And then there's just some of the other people who were there with us, and it was awesome to have them come with us and be part of this thing. This is the ambassador's residence here. Some of you might recognize these guys. It's
That's
the Paul
right.
brothers.
Yeah, we invited the Paul brothers to come over.
So that was nice to have those guys with us here, and they came with their camera guy there on the left-hand side there. This is actually during the presentation of the information. This is involving the Phoenicia expedition, and if you haven't been following that stuff, you can go back to some of our podcasts earlier in the year and check that out. We had several podcasts about the Lehi's ocean voyage.
Yeah, and that's Captain Beale right there on the right.
Yeah,
right in between the
right
camera
side.
guy. That's right.
Yeah. And this is actually where the ambassadors of Tunisia and Arish, and then also you have Betty and Mike LaFontaine. That's Betty Red Ant LaFontaine, and she noticed something that when they were pulling the ship in one time that they made this sound like a woo kind of thing. We tend to think of that as a Native American thing that's a Hollywood deal. You know, when the Indians are charging down on the cowboys or whatever, they're like, actually that has nothing to do with that. That's complete Hollywood. When they do this, it's after special occasions, specifically when a child is born or when you have kind of a welcome. It's a welcoming signal, and they do that in Tunisia.
Yeah, that's right.
And Native Americans do that.
It was interesting because
cool.
Arish was saying that when they came in to the port, where I forgot where it was that they entered. Oh, they were leaving.
Oh, that was in Florida.
It was in Florida, right?
Yeah.
And they were entering, and then they heard, it was Betty LaFontaine saying that they heard that sound, and she was like, "Wait, I recognize that sound."
Yeah. It's actually kind of a throwback from both of these peoples, the Tunisians as well as Native Americans, to their ancestral heritage of Hebrews.
Right.
It's really pretty cool. Anyway, so and this is just showing again, some of the other people that were there. This is kind of the big group there at the ambassador's residence there. As you can see, some of the people there. Philip Beale's there in the front and with the ambassador, and there's dignitaries from the Smithsonian and
that's right,
and from all over the place. It was an awesome event.
It was so cool to be in the ambassador's home and to listen to their stories and get to speak to some of the Smithsonian members that were there.
Yeah. Traditional Tunisian food.
Yeah, that was really good.
Pretty cool.
It was delicious.
Yeah, but this whole thing, if you don't know why we were there, then you need to go back and actually check out some of our podcasts from earlier this year involving the Phoenicia expedition, and it has a lot to do with Lehi's ocean voyage, the Phoenician ship, and then also the Mulekite voyage. But we don't have time to go into all that. When we got back, we got back to Las Vegas, basically.
Yeah, we landed. So we left DC. We landed in Las Vegas.
Yep.
We got in Big Blue.
my van.
And we drove down to LA.
So the next stop was L.A. and to Ward Radio. And just really quickly, so if you're not familiar with Cardin Ellis and Ward Radio, you need to check it out. We went down there, kind of not knowing what was to expect, and if you know anything about Cardin Ellis, I mean, the guy's just he's got a brilliant mind. He's like all kinds of new ideas and things, and he comes up with this idea for this skit. And I was at first, I was like, oh, I don't know about this particular skit, because I'm a little skittish about being like this spokesperson or whatever. But it's kind of been more or less sort of thrust on me. So he wanted to do the skit. And what do you think? And Brill was there actually.
Yeah, we were there.
He's there here in studio.
Do you want to play the video?
Oh, can you play the video?
Yeah, I have it pulled up.
We'll play it. Let's do it.
All right, so here it is.
That would be great.
I'm going to play
Here it is.
The skit.
If you didn't see this, oh man, it's so fun to see the whole episode, but this is the first part.
All right, here it is. I'm playing the video.
The Book of Mormon historicity takes place in Mesoamerica, Central America, South America, amongst the Proto-Mayans and the Olmec people, and instead they're suggesting that the Book of Mormon took place in North America, especially amongst the Houma or the Adena peoples, and one of their principal voices is Ron Meldrum. Now, immediately upon realizing that I was going to interview Ron Meldrum and be face to face with the Heartlander of Heartlanders, the all-American superstar of the Book of Mormon geography, I realized I was wildly underdressed for the occasion and needed to enlist the help of my hot wife, Brittany the Shadow, to get me ready for this auspicious and most patriotic, dare I say, hashtag America of all interviews. So we went shopping. At this point, I only had two major questions. First, what's most patriotic? Apollo Creed? Is it Thomas Jefferson? All of it. Is it Uncle Sam's hat? And second, what am I actually going to say to Ron Meldrum when he shows up? That's it. Very well done. Hi, I'm Ron Meldrum, Heartlander in Chief. Cardin Ellis, radio host. Doing great. Thanks. This is my associate, Brill Hernandez. Hola. Okay, bro. You look very, Mesoamerican. See.
All right. That was hilarious.
Anyway, oh my goodness, that was a good time, gotta say. Yeah, Bill, what did you think about that? That was pretty interesting. We storyboarded it, and then went out shopping with him.
I actually was not prepared. It's been a while since I've done a skit like that. And so for me, I was like, okay, how is this actually going to turn out? But seeing the storyboard and how we were going to do that, like right here, this is us in his studio.
There's a storyboard right
and
there.
there's a storyboard right there on the bottom right. And it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun to do that with Carden.
We put that together, what, like an hour or something?
We put that together in about an hour.
Well, I mean, the storyboard and then we
Yeah.
had to go shopping and
Right.
get this
Right.
this crazy outfit and so forth.
But then after that, we shot it in like one take each shot.
Yeah.
I shot most of it.
Yeah.
And we put it together, and there it was. It was fun.
That was awesome.
It was fun.
That was a good time. Well, then, so after that, then I actually had a couple of presentations up in Logan and up in Afton, Wyoming. There's the new temple is up there, relatively new temple up there in Star Valley. There's a lot of snow. I try not to do too many presentations in the middle of the winter time because it's just kind of crazy. But we had a pretty good turnout. I mean, for
That's
Star Valley, it's a small place and not much going on there in the wintertime. But anyway, we had a pretty good turnout there. And then we started with our podcast. So we've been trying to figure out. Brill and I have been we've set up different ways of doing our studio here. I think we've got it figured out though, Brill.
I think we have it figured out now. It's a little it's more permanent, so it's easier to get through and get rolling.
Yeah. But we're trying different things and so forth, trying to figure out how we can make this so we can have it set up and have people come. It's like this is David and Lel Reed. He's done the information research on the DNA. He's got a book out and so forth. Anyway, so you'll see that in some of our podcasts there going up there. And then we took off cross country.
Oh, man, that was crazy.
Got into a snowstorm. It was wonderful.
Gosh.
Because this is our Eclipse tour. So we had before that we had our spring expo at the Mountain America Expo Center. I want a big shout out to Ryan Nelson, my events manager for getting that all set up. It was fantastic. Had a tremendous expo. Then we left almost immediately from that expo.
Yeah, we did.
To head out to the Eclipse tour. So yeah,
we drove straight. We drove from here all the way to Kansas City without stopping.
Yeah.
We just went straight through.
Just deadheaded straight across. It was awesome. Anyway, so we went out there, met Russ and Heidi Barlow, and with UMGO tours, and then also the Universal Model. Yeah.
And the Truth Seekers Foundation, because I think this was Russ's tour, right?
Yeah. And Dean and Danette Sessions were also with us. It was fantastic to have them there. It's been a long time since we were able to do some stuff together.
And that was at Temple Lot, right? Yeah, this is the Temple Lot right across.
Temple Lot in Independence. This is the actual. We're kind of outlining here the temple as it was set down by Joseph Smith and the brethren there in Independence, Missouri. This is a great one. This is one I've used for years, but this is actually.
I love this.
You see where the river is in this picture. That's the Missouri River. And there was a river boat that sank called the Arabia back in 1860s. And so this is just right after the Nauvoo period, was within a few years, about 10 or 15 years of the Nauvoo period. And bottom line is that this boat was it sank, and without going into much detail here, some guys from actually one of the restoration branches of the church,
that's right,
actually went looking for it. And they got ground penetrating radar. They could see this huge the boiler is such a great big piece of metal that they basically were able to see that. But the interesting thing is, if we go back to this picture here, they found it about a quarter of a mile away from the current river, out in the middle of a cornfield.
Right, that's right.
Because that's where the river channel used to be. So that just kind of gives you an idea of when it comes down to archaeology, how things change. We had a wonderful interview here with one of the men that actually was the people that actually found that, and we haven't released that video yet, have we?
We have released that video. Actually,
we have.
Yes, it's
okay.
It's on our YouTube streaming. Yes,
okay, it's on the YouTube channel.
Yep.
So, all right, but that he's talking about the Phoenicia, not the Phoenicia, get that out of my mind, the steamboat Arabia, and why is that important to Book of Mormon geography? If you want to know that answer, then go watch the video. It's awesome. We also went to Air and Space Museum there in the Midwest. This is an SR-71. I've had kind of a heartthrob for the SR-71.
When I lived in Palmdale, We had the Air Force at Edwards Air Force Base out there, and we were able to go and visit a lot of these airplanes. They had like an air park museum where we could get really close to them.
Did you ever
and
see one
touch them.
flying?
I've never seen one flying, but at night you would hear some really weird sounds in the airspace.
Yeah.
And I mean, I can only suppose that it's whatever secret airplane they have now, because now we know that the SR-71 exists, right?
When I found out that the SR-71 actually was what first came out the same year I was born in 1963, and it still holds the world record, for the fastest plane, basically, and I had such a desire to know more about this. And in high school, I don't know if you knew this or not, bro, but I actually wrote a senior paper. It's like a 25-page for English and so forth. But I wrote to Lockheed Martin and got a bunch of information. They sent me a bunch of classified documents. No, they didn't actually. But they did send me some unclassified documents that had been recently declassified, talking about the titanium, exterior shell on it and so forth.
Right.
And it was just, it's still today, it just holds the imagination of a lot of people. But anyway, it was cool to actually see one of these. I've been up to Hill Air Force Base and seen the one up there. But here's Russ and I at the nose of that beast. Then we went to the underground Stratica mine. It's a salt mine, just out there in the middle of Kansas, just out there, just flat as a pancake out there.
And you go 680 feet underground in this like really fast elevator that sends you down there.
Yeah. So here's the group going down to in the elevators down there to underneath there. And then they take a train around inside the mine. It's just huge. But anyway, it's pretty cool. Salt is a big thing with the universal model, understanding where salt comes from. Anyway, and then this is Preacher's Rock. So here's one of our fellow tour members actually up on Preacher's Rock. Joseph Smith actually delivered quite a number of sermons actually from this Preacher's Rock. This is at Adamonte-Yaman. Same area where the Nephite altar was found, and Adam's altar and things like that. So this is a pretty a sacred place. We had a great time there. We had some local people come and see us there on the left-hand side. You can see them. Anyway, just a wonderful time out there. And then we made it to Nauvoo, and we interviewed. So this is the owner of the Red Brick Store.
Yeah, that's Brian Christensen.
Yeah, Brian Christensen.
That's right.
And they have found some really interesting stuff as they've discovered underneath the Red Brick Store, and they found Joseph and Hiram's tombs that had been made specifically for them.
Not the Red Brick Store. It was
not the Red Brick Store. Yeah,
the mercantile. That's right.
Zion's Mercantile.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. I got that wrong. Anyway, because I'm so excited about the Red Brick Store and what's going on there.
Yes, that's coming up.
Because just before we left, within just a few weeks before we left on the tour, the church announced that they had just recently purchased a lot of these historical sites in and around Nauvoo and Kirtland from the Community of Christ.
Yeah.
Formerly the RLDS Church. So it was really exciting to have one of the very first tours actually out there early in the spring. Before any other tours really got out there, we were actually out there and able to see these sites that now are in the hands of the church, and it's so wonderful to come in there and see the missionaries coming in there.
It was so cool to go because we were able to go into the Red Brick Store like right when it was like within a couple of weeks when they purchased it, so it was still empty.
Yep.
Inside of it, it was kind of it was a really cool experience.
Yeah, this is Brian in the Zion's Mercantile there in Nauvoo, and this is up in the top of the This is actually in the Red Brick Store. This is where the oldest women's organization in the world was first organized.
That's right.
The Relief Society of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and this is the room where that all actually took place. And then we were able to go to, for the first time, through the mansion house with our own missionaries there. It was fabulous to actually go and be there with our missionaries, and it's a lot more accommodating. The Community of Christ did a wonderful job of preserving this, but they didn't really have the manpower to be able to take people on tours at a minute's notice. So you had to be on one of their so many tours a day that they would do, and if you didn't get there in time and if you didn't have so many hours to do it, then you just didn't get to go. So this is really nice to be able to do that. Of course, I've just developed such a love for Nauvoo and that whole area and what Joseph and the early brethren and saints accomplished there. The Nauvoo temple is just a thing of wonder when you consider that even for today's standard, it is an amazing building. But back in the 1800s, when it was built, it was really just astounding.
I love the one of it's one of your pictures. I think that's the one. That's the picture that I love.
Yeah, that's looking across the Mississippi River there, and to the west, and the sunset, and then a beam of light coming between the two testator's, as they are called, the Joseph and Hiram, on their horses, as the depicting when they were leaving to head to faithful Carthage.
Well, for me, can you go back to that picture?
Yeah.
Whenever I look at this picture, it makes me think of, there's an account, and you probably know this account a lot better than I do, the account of Joseph being able to ride a horse across the Mississippi in one of those sections.
Yeah, we've actually got that actually is it's chronicled. Actually, it's in my book that has been out of print. I am so sorry, everybody. That's one thing that didn't get done. Is I was hoping to be able to get this book redone so we can actually be using it again. It's called Exploring the Book of Mormon America's Heartland. It talks about crossing the Mississippi River on foot and why that's so important to the Book of Mormon,
Right.
and its geography, and when you have the Lord telling Joseph Smith to build up a city on the land on the other side of the river, right where that sunset's coming from, on the west side of the river there, and call it Zarahemla, and that was the very first time that area across there was ever called Zarahemla.
Right.
Later on, people added that into some of the historical documents and so forth. But we know that is the first time that was ever called Zarahemla over there was after the revelation, known now as Doctrine and Covenants 125 verse 3. Anyway, so then we had a really interesting. Got up very early in the morning, went over to Cahokia, and
That's such a cool shot.
And watched the sun coming up over the top of Monk's Mound, which is the largest earthen mound, at least in the Americas.
Right.
It is almost, 14 acres at the base, and rises over 100 feet high. Over 15 million basket loads of dirt or earth was moved to make this massive structure, just east of St. Louis, actually.
Right. And behind it, this is looking east, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
this is the sun coming up. Yeah.
And so then behind that is the other mound.
Yep. So this is that. So there's the other mounds and so forth back in the back there, and we got there just in time for the 2024 amazing eclipse, which of course we've talked about this and ad nauseum about the great cross, basically the 2017 eclipse that went across the United States that direction, and the 2024 eclipse that went across the other way. Basically, and intersecting right at the point at the southern tip of Illinois is where they actually intersect, which is right next to a place that is a Hopewell mound builder, amazing area there in Giant City State Park, and anyway, we went up on there as well. But anyway, so we went to pretty close to the epicenter of where those two actually intersect.
Where was that? That was in Cape Girardeau.
Cape Girardeau.
That's right.
Now, Cape Girardeau is interesting because that back in 1811, 1812, before Joseph Smith even had the first vision, there was a massive earthquake in this area, and the guy that did the, oh gosh, what's his name now? Not the Smithsonian, the Audubon Society.
Oh.
John Audubon, I think. Is it John Audubon? Anyway, but he basically was standing here in Cape Girardeau when one of the big massive earthquakes from 1811 happened in December of 1811, and he actually talked about the destruction and how the entire sky just turned black after one of the earthquakes, and he recorded this. This is John James Audubon, I believe it is. Anyway, and he recorded this in his journals. And anyway, and we've talked about that quite a bit this year about the destruction that happened around the time of Christ's death.
That's right.
But this is all of our group there. We had this nice pavilion here to go and to participate in the eclipse.
That was so eerie, honestly.
It was
I had
amazing.
never, I can't remember ever experiencing an eclipse before. This was my first eclipse.
Yeah.
And it was just weird to hear all of the birds singing and everything was kind of moving around, and then all of a sudden it became dark. Is this the picture?
Yeah. So this is in the middle of the day.
Yeah.
Just prior to that, I mean, it was basically,
Yeah,
it looked like this, and then it looked like that.
it was wild.
And the birds were like,
And
what's
it got
going
cold.
on? Yeah.
That was the other part of it. I'm
Yeah.
like, so
Temperature drops probably 15 degrees.
it got cold, the birds stopped chirping, everything got still. It
Yep.
was wild.
And this is after the, in fact, if you notice that even the lights were coming on.
Yeah.
and in the pavilion and everything, the lights were coming on. I said, oh no, stop it! Don't have the lights come on.
And
gonna
it's
ruin
also
it.
interesting if you pay really close attention, like the way that the picture's taken, like there's like this blur.
Uh-huh.
Because even when I was looking at my hands, like when I would put my hands up to
Yes.
my face, there was just this blur.
It was the weirdest
It
thing.
was a
light
weird
coming,
experience.
The light coming was being bent apparently or something. I don't know what's going on with that, but anyway, it was fascinating. Then we went to one of the places I enjoyed the most. I mean, I don't know. What did you think, Brill? Did you have a good time with that?
I did have a good time with
You
that.
had such a good time. You actually showed up in this picture twice.
Yes, Dean, Russ, and I.
He's on both the far left and the far right, along with Dean and Russ. But that, in the background there, it's kind of interesting because the rainbow has been kind of shanghaied, actually.
It 100% has been Shanghai.
Yeah, people look at the rainbow and go, "Oh, that's a LGBTQ thing," and basically that is actually because it was originally a sign from God that the earth would never be flooded again. Right?
I think that whenever I didn't know this when I mean, being a convert to the church, I always attributed the rainbow. For one, I thought the rainbow was kind of fruity, you know,
Kind of what? Fruity?
fruity. I didn't really care for, you know, having anything that had the rainbow.
Uh-huh.
And then the more I learned about what the rainbow actually meant and the covenant behind the rainbow and the what it means, I was like, wow, how crazy has it been that it's been hijacked and in a way perverted
Yeah.
to mean something completely different.
So
than what
so
it's
many
intended.
symbols have been perverted like that.
Yeah.
I mean, even the swastika used by Hitler is actually a Hebrew
Yeah, that's right.
symbol
That's right.
that and Native Americans used it, and
Yeah.
and the Hopewells actually had stuff that looks, it's basically like a swastika, but the little angles off that comes off of the main spokes are facing the
Right.
opposite direction.
That's right.
Because it's the opposite thing. I have heard in the past, and I don't know if this is actually true or not, but if you take the true order of color of a rainbow in the sky, and then you take a look at like the LGBTQ flags, essentially,
Yeah.
that the colors are in opposite order. I don't know if that's the case.
Oh, I haven't
For
paid
sure.
close
I haven't
enough attention.
really double checked on that, but it is interesting to think that, you know, that just like the swastika was reversed, that the colors of the rainbow are reversed from nature versus what's not natural.
And just like you said, there's so many symbols that have been hijacked like that,
Yeah.
and that's not the only one. Yeah.
Yep. But anyway, so back in the background, you see Noah's Ark there, and that was just an amazing thing to go into this replica of Noah's Ark and kind of see how much space there actually is in that thing, and how many floors and so forth. And then this is everybody's leaving, and this is Russ's van, and God saw everything that He had made, and behold, it was very good. And that's the Truth Seekers.
Truth Seeker Mobile is what I
mobile.
call it.
Just as they were leaving. All right, so we got done with that. We're going to have a Sacred Histories American Covenant tour, but then I ended up not being able to make that one in September because of some other things that came up and so forth. We didn't do it, but not to worry, because we're doing the Sacred Histories American Covenant tour this coming year in 2025. It's going to be May the 17th to the 30th. And if you'd like to learn more about that, then check out Legacy Tours and Travel, and join Chris Kimball and I to go on this on the Sacred Histories American Covenant tour. And let me tell you, it's just a couple of quick things. The itinerary is the same, even though we've just had to change the date. But we're actually going to be going to Washington D.C. and Old Town Alexandria, the Washington Monument, and the Masonic Memorial, Mount Vernon, the United States Capitol, Philadelphia, the Liberty Bell, the Independence Hall, and so forth. Then we're going to be going to New York, the Federal Hall, and the St. Paul's Cathedral, which if you know, that's much about the destruction that happened in 9/11. St. Paul's Cathedral, or St. Paul's Chapel, was spared, even though it was right at the foot of the North Tower as it fell down, the north of the Twin Towers. Anyway, so then we're going to be going to Narragansett Runestone, to Newport Tower. These are really early. Chris Kimball is going to tell you a lot about the Knights Templar and the sacred posterity of Christ, basically, that they were protecting, and what was going on over in Europe, and also what was happening over here in America as well. We're going to be going to Massachusetts and Lexington and Concord, and talking about the battles that happened there in the Revolutionary War. We're going to be talking about going to the Westford Library and America's Stonehenge, the Joseph Smith Memorial Birthplace in Vermont. So if you haven't been there, seen the big obelisk there that's been put up there, it's just fabulous. Then we have the Priesthood Restoration Site, the Josiah Stoll and Joseph Knight homes. And then we're going to finish it up here with the Hill Cumorah, the Grandin Press, the Smith Family Farm, talking about the church in Palmyra, the Sacred Grove, and the Dunkirk Lighthouse. Then we're going to be continuing on to the west over to the Kirtland Temple, to the Emma and Joseph home in Kirtland, which now the church owns the Kirtland Temple, and also the Joseph and Emma's original home there in Kirtland, as well as the store there, the Newell K. Whitney store, and Isaac Morley Farm, and lots of other cool places there in Kirtland. We're going to finish it up at the Great Circle, the Great Octagon, and the Hopewell Culture National Historical Park, and the Serpent Mound in Ohio. And then we're flying home. So if you'd like to join me and Chris, it's going to be fantastic. In fact, I think we're going to have, Chris and I are going to be doing a little bit of information about this as well. I also have, just while we're on this subject of tours for a second, it's probably too late to get on this one, but we're leaving here just about 3 or 4 weeks from now for the South Pacific Wonders Tour. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that at the end. But let's just go ahead and finish it up. So we have, this is going to be interesting, because after we get the Serpent Mound, we're going to go to Fort Ancient. We're actually going to, for the first time on a Book of Mormon related tour, we're going to go to the Ark Encounter. That was so impressive. I think people want to see that. So if you would like to see Noah's Ark and the Ark Encounter, and I think we're also going to the Creation Museum there.
Yeah. And
then we're going to be heading home. So that's going to be a great tour. If you want to join me on that tour, again, that is May 17th to the 30th of next year. We actually did the Book of Mormon Chronology tour in October of last year. At this point in time, we had a quick explanation. Maybe should we explain this real quick, Burl?
Which part?
When we first started at the year, we had previously had because this last year has been, as you all know, the Book of Mormon year, when we're studying the Book of Mormon for Come Follow Me in the church. And so we wanted to start, 4 years ago, we did podcasts and followed the Come Follow Me program pretty closely. And we decided that it'd be great to kind of do something along those lines again, but not follow exactly along with what the church is doing, because we want you to kind of focus on what the church is doing, but we want to give you supplemental information that you can use throughout the whole year. So we had the website, our YouTube channel was called Book of Mormon, was called Come Follow Me 2020.
Right.
Well, that doesn't work for 2024. So we basically had to shut down that one and actually start basically anew on a new YouTube channel.
Right.
And so we started with 1,000.
It was like
views,
1,000 subscribers.
Like it has 1,000 subscribers or something. So we literally had to start from scratch. We had over 1.5 million views on that Come Follow Me 2020, but we lost it all when we basically changed the site. So we had to start all over again. So we were pretty excited here in March of 2024. We reached 400,000 views, but there's going to be more in just a little bit. So that was in March. So we made it to that point. Had 663 new subscribers. Total views, 47,000 views, and then minutes watched were blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so that's our YouTube channel. Then on our main website, we've been working on some things there. We've got some new ideas for some logos and things that we're going to be implementing on a new website that we're working on. Hopefully, we'll be rolling that out by April conference, our April conference.
And there's been a lot that's happened there because we've had to.
Yeah.
I mean, the website's huge.
It is huge.
I did not recognize that when we brought in a consultant to take a look at the website, and he was like, this is enormous. This is going to take a long time to move over. We were hoping it was just going to be quick, grab it, move it over here, and be done. But if we do that, we're going to break a lot of links and a lot of content. And so we have to treat it carefully.
Yeah.
Package it up nicely.
Yep. So we have all kinds of ideas that we're going to be implementing into the new updated website when we get that rolled out.
Is this a sneak peek
right now? The website is, but you won't see anything until we actually get it completely ready to go, and then we'll just switch over to the new website, and so you can just use the old website as it is for now until we get this new one all completed. All right. So that's a little bit update from the spring of last year. So I'll close that down here. And so then what was next, Brill?
Well, we were going to talk a little bit about what's happened from fall to now.
Yeah.
And there's been a lot that's happened in the last, what has it been, like 2 weeks? There's been some big news. Did you want to go into that?
Yeah, there's definitely some big news going on there. Let me just pull this up really quickly here, though.
Or did you want to start? Did you want to start in the fall from the Book of Mormon Chronology tour? When we went on that tour, I had never gone on a Book of Mormon Chronology tour before, and I had taken myself and my family to a couple of places in the past, but some of the locations that we went to were mind blowing.
Yeah.
To see in person and be there in person in the middle of like one of the many in Ohio that you're standing in the middle of it, and it's like 50 acres big.
Yeah.
And you can't even really see it. When you're in the middle of it, you don't really notice what you're even looking at.
It's so big, it disappears out into the distance.
Yeah.
You can't even see it.
And I was able to put my drone up into the air
and
take a look at it. And I was amazed at how huge and so perfect that the way that they made all of the angles, it was wild.
Yeah, especially like the Newark earthworks and so forth.
Yeah,
just awesome. Yeah, one of the places that I didn't mention before when we were on the Eclipse tour was the Big Bone Lick, which is kind of an interesting state historic site. This is basically an ancient swamp area. And they had all kinds of stuff in there, from elephants to bison, and they're showing kind of the size of a human there with an atlatl there.
It's like the equivalent of the La Brea tar pits, but out in the East Coast.
But out toward in the east, right, basically right in this area in that we're talking about here as Book of Mormon area, Book of Mormon lands.
And that was like a 10-minute drive from the Ark encounter, right?
Yeah,
if I remember correctly.
Very, very close. Pretty well. Yeah, I think it was about maybe 15 minutes or something. It was pretty close. But yeah, Ice Age elephants were talked about here. Hooves and teeth from horses and bison. They're talking about ancient bison at Big Bone Lick, and basically, or cows and so forth. Were talked about in the in the archaeology and things. That's more discoveries. From mound builders to maize farmers, and this is talking about how they started growing their corn and so forth. Extinct megafauna, so elk and musk oxen and so forth, and all kinds of other things. So anyway, this is the Ark. This is a better shot of the overall the Ark encounter.
And this was built to like the exact.
Well, as close as we know.
Close as we know, according to the Bible. Like I forget, what is his name? The creator of the Ark Encounter. His name is Ken Ham.
Yeah, Ken Ham. Yeah, he's a creationist and also a biblical scholar, and a
scientist.
Got this together. It was just awesome.
Yeah.
Great stuff. I mean, just to kind of give you an idea, the sheer size of this thing is just pretty astounding. We also had a kind of fun thing. This is in my studio here. We had a friend of mine that came and talked about the miracle of Qui-Gon, and this is Brad Taylor, and he and his wife were mission presidents out in South Korea, and they heard about this miracle that happened. Anyway, without going into details, did we ever?
We have the video. The video is up on our YouTube.
Okay.
And he goes into detail on how everything. It was an amazing story.
So many miracles. It was so fabulous to have Brad come out and his brother George came out with him, and their wives, and they came out and brought this information. It was fantastic. That's them right there. That's Brad on the right with his wife there, and then George and his wife, and David Allen was there, and a bunch of other people. Anyway, so you see some folks there. But yeah, so it's really nice to be able to have this studio space that we can actually have these kind of small events like this. We can seat about 75 people or so there, and then he talked about this miracle of Qui-Gon just as a very brief. That's about 200 guys from central Utah, from Beaver and down into St. George, Utah, that were in the National Guard, and they were called to go to. They were called up to come out of their reserve thing and become active for a little bit, and they were promised by the St. George Temple president that if they would live up to their covenants, that none of them would be killed. They didn't think that they would be going to the front lines, though. They thought they were going to be doing like transport and that kind of thing, well behind the lines. But they ended up going to North Korea. And then there was an offensive that was put on by over 4,000 Chinese and North Korean soldiers that pinned them down in this valley called Qui-Gon. And long story short is that basically they had a huge firefight overnight. They took like almost 900 prisoners. There was about 700 or 800 of the Chinese and North Korean soldiers that were killed in the battle. Many of these men were actually injured and so forth. But when the smoke cleared and everything came, they got everything kind of back together. They were astounded by the fact that not one of these young men of the 200 were killed. Many of them had been injured, and reminded him a lot of the 2,000 stripling warriors. It's only a 10%. It's a tithing of the 2,000 stripling warriors.
Yeah.
The 200. But it was so wonderful. I was able to give them a special gift, which is actually a special painting that I had of the 2,000 stripling warriors. And anyway, so that's a phenomenal painting as well. Anyway, so they have that probably hanging in the room. Then we started with the Chronology tour, and this is Florida. Looking off to the west, the sunset there. This is the Gulf of Mexico side of Florida, and this is just pretty close to the St. Mark's Lighthouse out there. It's a nature preserve. It's the only coastline of Florida that isn't highly developed. So
I noticed that when we were there.
Yeah,
I was like, wow, this is just gorgeous. And there was nothing there was like, it was just ocean and coastline.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that we were in a national park.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty cool. I have a really cool lighthouse and so forth there. We're not going to talk too much about the tour. We have, it's just fantastic. But this is the Great Smoky Mountains National Park as we're heading over to Cherokee, North Carolina, after we saw a bunch of ancient sites there in Georgia and so forth, Okmulgee Mounds and Etowah Mounds and so forth. This is just kind of showing you that the Smoky Mountains, and talks about how the Gadianton robbers did sally forth from the mountains. This is one of the areas that we feel like that they were probably sallying forth from. And also this is the Land of Nephi area in the general vicinity here, which every time they talk about going to the Land of Nephi, they go up into the Land of Nephi and then down out of the Land of Nephi. This is not in Chattanooga, Tennessee. This is actually right at the kind of the summit of the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. But
That's
anyway.
right.
Just
it was
beautiful.
gorgeous.
Look at that.
And it makes sense when we were driving through that location. I was like, this makes a lot of sense that they came up into these areas and to be able to
Hide
maneuver
out.
your way through it and to hide out.
Yep.
I loved it.
Yeah. In fact, this is at the top of the only place in the world, well, in the United States, where you can stand in one place and you can see 7 states. And so this is the top of it's called Rock City, on top of Lookout Mountain. Just down in the valley and to the left is the city of Chattanooga, Tennessee. So you can. This is actually looking kind of generally speaking south and east in this particular view, but it's just fascinating. This is the land of Nephi area. This is we believe there was a tower on top of this. That is the tower that King Noah actually went up on top of when Gideon was chasing him, and basically said, "Hey, don't kill me." The Lamanites are in the borders of the land. Well, they had to have some kind of a tower to see the borders of the land, but from here out to the very horizon, it's about 80 miles away. So they'd be several days more journey for the Lamanites to actually get to them if they saw their campfires at night or whatever, gleaming out in the distance there. So,
and you could see really far.
Yeah.
I was really impressed with how far you could see from there.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. We went to this is called Old Stone Fort in Tennessee as well. This is an area that has these rivers and cliffs on both sides, and with an area in the middle. This is I think this is top of Pinson Mounds here. Looks like probably Pinson
it is
Mounds.
the Pinson Mounds.
This is in Tennessee as well. We went to the Phoenicia. This is how far the Phoenicia has gotten. Look at that.
I know the last time that we were there, it was only about a quarter of the ship that had been built, and showing up again just this last fall. It was amazing to see this.
Yeah,
I loved it.
Yeah, it is really fascinating to see this massive ship actually take shape again, piece by piece, and it fit in that space just almost within like 2 feet on each side. It fit that space just perfectly. But yeah, it's really coming along. So if you've been following the Heartland Research Group and Mike and Betty LaFontaine and the restoration of the Phoenicia ship, there are a couple of different museums that we're talking to right now that are looking at the possibility of putting that into the museums, talking about Book of Mormon voyages, which this ship has actually done 2 of the 3 voyages, which is the big reason why we're there with in Tunisia and all that stuff. So. If you may not know what we're talking about here, but basically, if you go back to some of our earlier podcasts this spring, you'll understand why the Phoenicia is such a big deal for Book of Mormon geography. We also stopped in Nauvoo and went to the Flood Museum. So this is we got a firsthand. We had actually Noah actually met us there at the Flood Museum to talk to us about the Noah's flood. This is just a portion of our group there that we had there, and talking about the dinosaurs and so forth, and Noah's flood, and being an actual real event, a worldwide event. And we know that from the Book of Mormon as well as the other standard works of the church. Of course, we got Nauvoo. There's and then this is the Carthage jail here. This is a Hopewell house. You can see one of our guys jumped in the canoe here, a dugout canoe. This is part of our group there. And for the first time, we were actually able to take pictures in the Kirtland Temple, because
that was an amazing experience.
Own the temple, the church does, and it's amazing. They've actually gone in and actually shored up a lot of the things in the temple there, so it would be a lot in better shape if it gets into a minor, earthquake or whatever. I was thinking they're maybe going to do a full on, restoration thing, kind of like they did with the Provo City Center tabernacle turned into temple. But they brought in some steel, and they hooked in things and bolted things together and so forth. So I think it's a much better position than it was. That was one of my biggest concerns about the Community of Christ. Did not have the financial resources to be able to do what was going to be necessary to keep this building standing. So this is really nice to have our own missionaries in there and doing it. We want to have a shout out though to our friends from the Community of Christ who have done such a wonderful job of preserving and keeping this edifice standing and keep it in good condition and keeping it the maintenance and so forth on it. I have a lot of friends in the RLDS and the Community of Christ and other restoration branches. And so we just want to give a little shout out to all of those guys because they all love the Book of Mormon too. And basically, we're all about anybody who loves the Book of Mormon. That's what we're all about, right, bro?
That is right.
All right. This is another site that you're going to be able to see now because you see our missionaries are out there. This is Joseph and Emma's home, just to the, what is that? I think it's east, or I can't remember if it's which direction it is, but anyway, it's just to the side of the Kirtland Temple, and the church actually purchased it. It had been added on to a couple times. The church took it basically back down to what it probably most likely is, as best we understand historically, the home was at the time of Joseph and Emma. So Joseph and Emma literally lived in this home for a time there in the Kirtland period. We've had AI generated stuff that's been pretty cool. Some of the some friends of mine actually did this, just some kind of cool Book of Mormon related things with the Heartland ideas here. So they've got
that actually is pretty cool.
Isn't that kind of cool?
That is actually pretty cool.
They're checking stuff here. They've got the Hopewell type homes here. Some of them in the foreground there, and people there in their areas here. And this is actually pretty accurate. You see the mound out in the background.
Yeah, I was just noticing that.
You see the towers there and so forth there, and it's hard. We just had a big Ward Radio just had a big debate about a week ago.
About a week, yeah.
And they had Luke Hansen was arguing for the Mesoamerica side, and I was arguing for the Heartland side. And one of the things he brought up is that the lack of cities, and we're gonna actually take a couple of opportunities to do a full-on podcast about that, because he was talking about how there's been archaeologists have said, it's really amazing that there's no cities here. There were just a bunch of maybe a couple of small groups of hunter-gatherers, but they're always scratching their head and going, well, but we don't understand how it is that they built over 1 million mound sites with somewhere between 2 and 3 million mounds with just a small. Some of these mounds are massive. Most of them are probably 30 to 60 feet across and 10 or 15 feet high. A lot of them have been destroyed. I mean, the vast majority, probably 90% of them, have been destroyed now. But the idea that they didn't have a big population makes absolutely no sense when you just look at the sheer numbers of the mounds that were remaining from that. Anyway, I think that was this is kind of a cool one here.
That is actually a really cool shot.
Isn't that kind of neat?
And anyway, this is all AI generated?
Yeah, it's all AI generated stuff. Yeah, it's pretty cool. That's showing, kind of a similar thing with the Native American mound there. This is kind of a combination of Mesoamerica stuff and Native stuff, but it shows out in the background, basically the area around Missouri and Illinois and that area. I just think these are just really cool to kind of just be able to visualize better. I'm trying to remember who it was that sent me these, but I want to thank them for doing this. This is pretty cool. So this one is Clark Kelly Price. He is an LDS artist that I love his work. In fact, he's the one that did the 2000 Stripling Warriors painting that I gave to Brad. With the Miracle of Qui-Gon.
That is so cool.
But isn't that a cool
that is a really good
cool
rendition.
painting here, showing that? And if you take a look at the wall he's on, it's not a stone wall. It's actually a wooden palisade wall with a coating of cement over the top of it.
Right, which is predominant.
Yeah.
In those regions.
Yeah, and so you see his horse down at the bottom. I kind of check out his grappling hook there, made out of deer antlers.
It is so good, and I love the way that he drew kind of the tassels at the end of them. What are those called again?
The what?
All the fringes.
Oh, the fringes.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's the fringes is another one of those interesting things as far as Book of Mormon geography is concerned, because the Lord commanded the Hebrews to have a fringe upon their garment all of their days, and that is one of the distinguishing features of Native American garb basically is the fringes on the garments. It's a throwback to their Jewish ancestral heritage that they did that. I kind of like how he shows the path of the arrows and
Yeah,
how
I love
the
that
one arrow is
too.
actually literally bending away from him, and the other one up at the top is bending away from Samuel as he uses
I
as there.
love. I've never seen this before.
Yeah,
I'm
this is a
so
this is a brand new one. He just did this year.
no way. I'm
Yeah.
so glad you're showing this.
Yeah, Clark Kelly Price is one of our favorite artists. If you ever get a chance to go onto his website and check out his stuff, if you need some art for your home, that's for the Book of Mormon. I mean, he is an amazing artist. We've been blessed to have a ton of artists. We have some really great artists who have joined the Heartland movement, if you will. And look at this. By October 7th, we started with, what was that?
Well, 1,000 subscribers.
1,000 subscribers in January. We're up to 9,000 subscribers, and now we're just barely right at about making our
We're
next
about to
goal,
make 10,000.
about 10,000. So we're
I
there.
just I want to take a little moment just to say thanks to everybody.
Yes,
Like
absolutely.
it is just amazing to see the community, and I've always loved everything that you've done, Rod. Like everything, and being on this side of the tape and
Mhm.
being able to participate and listen to what people have to say. It's just an amazing community, and being able to be at the expos and to interact with people and talk with them, and
Yeah.
it's just amazing
Well,
the community that you've created.
we have been blessed, and I wouldn't say that I created it or anything. Basically, the truth created it.
Yeah.
People are drawn to the truth. They like being able to have answers to these hard questions about the Book of Mormon that are faithful to what Joseph Smith and other prophets have said about the Hill Cumorah and so many other things. So anyway, I just want to give a shout out to all of you, those of you who are watching this. If you're still watching this, I know it might be getting a little bit boring because we're talking about, it's kind of like watching somebody's their vacation images. But we want to basically show you that we're not sitting out. We're going to take this gospel message, the Book of Mormon message, to the world. We are just kind of getting all the ducks in a row so we can really do it on a much bigger scale and be able to touch the hearts and minds of people all over the world with this incredible history that we have that practically nobody knows about. So that's what we're kind of about. So we've had 600,000 views by this point in time in October 1st of 2024. And so again, just wanted to thank you for that. And I think we're approaching 1 million views now.
We are
for the
approaching.
year.
Yeah.
We had 1.4 million vieys on the previous one, but that was over the course of the last 4 years. So in 1 year, we basically have been able to recoup essentially where we were. But just as a reminder, if you are not a subscriber right now and you're on our YouTube channel, hit that button to subscribe.
Yeah.
That
Yeah,
really helps
it's
us.
just down here.
It helps the algorithms of YouTube so that actually they'll put it out more for other people when they're looking at different things or looking at Book of Mormon stuff or they're looking up the church or whatever. If we have more subscribers, then that actually helps YouTube to say, okay, we're going to go ahead and put that on as one of the next ones when people watch. As you know, when you watch YouTube, it brings up a next one, and a next one, and a next one, and so forth, and you can kind of scroll down through that. We would love to be able to have everybody in the world, when they pull up something that has to do with the church or the Book of Mormon or Native American history or those kind of things, that YouTube is actually kicking these things up, and the only way that happens is if you subscribe.
And so here it is.
Doesn't hurt you. It doesn't cost anything.
Yeah.
Just subscribe.
Here it is. So if you take a quick look,
Yeah.
here is the YouTube channel, and we're only 500 away from 10,000 subscribers. So go ahead and share it with all your friends. And when you watch a video, in the descriptions, you'll be able to see. It takes you to our streaming website where you can watch like all 1,700 presentations. And I've actually been going down rabbit holes recently and watching some of these as I've been putting things together, because we've been moving stuff over to. Yeah, have you told them about what happened with that?
Oh no, we haven't even talked about that, but we probably should. We're trying to decide whether it just might be just a little bit premature, but Okay, well, let's just jump into that for just a second. I know it's something we wanted to finish talking about here, and then we're going to wrap it up. But basically, so we have the podcast has been doing great. Let's see. So earlier this year, in fact, the very beginning of this year, after 12 years of having page 5 of LDS Living magazine, it's expensive. It's been it's quite a bit of money to actually to do that. It's a biannual or I guess it's every other month basically, publication that comes out by Deseret Book essentially. In fact, if you are a gold member of Deseret Books, buying club or whatever, then you get automatically a subscription to LDS Living magazine. A lot of people love it. I've enjoyed it. I've really enjoyed being able to advertise with them. It's been a great thing. But then, the beginning of this year, they had a new manager that basically came in, and after 12 years of spending somewhere between $20,000 and $25,000 a year with them, they just basically contacted me and said, "We are no longer going to be allowing you to advertise in our magazine." And the reason that they gave was, well, they did actually they never even really gave me a reason, but they hinted about that they didn't agree with some of the speakers that we have coming to speak at our events, and because they talk about things like health related things and so forth anyway, and election things. We have a lot of people who talk about freedom and liberty and about the standards of the church and the proclamation on the family. And some of those things today, amazingly, make people a little bit uncomfortable when we talk about those kinds of things. But we know from the Book of Mormon and other scriptures and our prophets and things that there will be secret combinations that will rear their ugly head here in America. If America is the promised land foretold in the Book of Mormon, as we as Heartlanders agree with that statement, then we know that there's going to be secret combinations that are going to happen, and so we try to point out these secret combinations. And apparently, there's at least they never told us which speaker or whatever. We have like 80 speakers. They had a problem with one of them, as I understand it, and they said no more advertising in LDS Living magazine. That is a travesty. Not only because of the fact that that it's kind of like a lot of places, especially conservative voices, that are trying to be squelched, to try to be canceled, to try to be taken down, basically. And that's essentially what happened with LDS Living magazine. I would love to have some kind of an explanation from them as to what exactly it was that they were having a problem with. But anyway, so we got canceled earlier this year. And then, should we tell them now, Brill?
Yeah, I think we should tell them.
Probably many of you, I mean, you know about our streaming website. So we have like 1,700 presentations that have been accumulated over the years. I think this was the 34th consecutive International Book of Mormon Evidence Conference and Firm Foundation Expo that we just had last in the fall of this year, just a couple months ago. And anyway, so about a week and a half or so ago?
About a week and a half. Yeah.
A week and a half ago, we got an email from our video streaming provider. So this is the host that holds all of our 1,700 videos on the Book of Mormon. And they basically just sent us an email, said, "You're canceled."
that was basically it. Honestly, it was just like
it was like 3 paragraphs, basically. You got 3 strikes and so forth. We had 2 strikes because of one of our speakers,
and it all happened this year.
Yeah, I thought that the wokeness that's been going on in the United States specifically. I think because after the election, I was hoping that the wokeness would actually kind of drop off in a lot of places. Carton Ellis was telling me that in California, being woke was a really big deal about 3 or 4 years ago, but now it's basically there's been a backlash against people who have been trying to censor and cancel anybody who has a different view, a different opinion about things. But apparently that's now it's happening even within the LDS Living magazine. But our provider, our service provider for our videos, said that they disagreed with one of our. Now we have 450 speakers that are in our, well, in fact, I think it's just a little bit more than that.
It's
that are
more
in
than
our
that for sure.
streaming website. Of the 1,700 presentations, those 1,700 presentations were done by around 450 different experts and so forth. They took issue with one of them, and it had to do with election interference and so forth. And they said it's election misinformation. So they gave us that's strike one. We had another one of our speakers actually talk about how the Department of Education of the United States government is actively promoting promiscuity. They're sexualizing our kids. It's almost to the point where, having to have all your pronouns and so forth, and pushing that whole agenda. And that was brought out by one of our speakers. And they said, that's
strike two.
That's strike two. We don't agree with that. The Department of Education is doing wonderful, which I'm actually really grateful by the fact that I've heard that incoming President Trump is actually going to be dismantling the Department of Education and putting it down to the state level so the states can individually decide what they're going to be taught instead of from the federal government, which has become so corrupt. I mean, they hardly even teach reading, writing, and arithmetic anymore in our public schools, and it gets worse the higher up you go. So our education systems have become socialist playgrounds, and wokeism and everything else on our university campuses is just rampant, and it's time for that to be cleared out. And I'm grateful that somebody had the capacity and the will to actually begin dismantling these organizations, these three-letter government-sponsored organizations. Anyway, so we ended up getting strike three was when another one of our speakers spoke out against. It was basically, they call it health misinformation, and something else. Anyway, so that was strike three. So they said that's 3 strikes, you're done, and they shut all of our videos down. So those of you who are subscribers probably have noticed that there was about a week there where we had nothing up because nothing would even come up because Vimeo, who is actually based out of New York, surprisingly, shut us all down. So that has been a huge blessing. I'm a big believer that when God shuts a door, He opens a window, or when He shuts a window, He opens a door, whatever. Anyway, bottom line is that better things come, and in fact, that's exactly what's happened. We feel really blessed, almost like a miracle has happened, because in the process of trying to find another hosting site, we actually were able to find a way to be able to do our streaming website, which will be more secure. It's a data storage place, so we don't have to worry about this. We've had to really scramble 1,700 presentations. It's like almost 4 terabytes of information. If you just have a regular download speed, it would take you a month at 24/7 to download all of those videos and be able to rescue them. Luckily, we have them all stored on hard drives, but we also have it's just a lot faster and easier if we can just get them from Vimeo and put it onto another platform. And we have just about got that process completed. And then we'll be able to put these all back up. We put several of our most recent conference speakers up on the old streaming service, so you can still watch some of those speakers. But we'll have everything back up and running here, hopefully in about a week and a half or 2 weeks. And it's going to be better, faster, and a much more robust situation, and it won't be cancelable. So.
Hey, but we put a feather up on our hat, though. It's like now we can say, hey, we've been canceled before.
so we now have the distinct honor and privilege of being those who have been canceled, and anyway, so All right.
Well, it's like I don't know how you feel about this, but I think I've heard it from you. You were saying that if you're not getting flak, then you're not over your target.
Yeah, that was actually back in World War II. The bombers that were bombing in Europe and so forth, bombing Germany and so forth, they had a saying that if you're not catching flak, meaning the anti-aircraft flak, then you're not over the target. And so we've been catching a lot of flak. I think we've caught a lot of
A
flak.
lot of flak
But
lately.
amazingly, just like a lot of those pilots back in World War II and other pilots and things, they catch a lot of flack. But with God's help, we've been able to actually continue moving forward and moving this and getting this information out to people. So we want to again thank all of you for your support. We also I want to especially thank my Heavenly Father for making this possible. It's been a pretty crazy ride from original attacks by the LDS scholarly community to not really acceptance by them, but at least being a little bit nicer. And actually, this leads into the last thing we're going to talk about here, which is essentially that. So for 17 years that I've been doing this Book of Mormon research and so forth, the Mesoamerica folks have been they've actually followed pretty closely to the Thomas Kuhn and scientific revolutions and kind of how revolutions actually happen. Okay, and the general idea is that first it's ignored, hoping it will go away when new information is brought out, and then it's violently opposed and attacking and so forth by the status quo, whoever it is that is kind of in charge at the time. And then it's basically shown to be, if it's real, if it's the truth, then it's shown to be kind of self-evident. And then the last step of it is that those who were doing the attacking actually begin to embrace it, and then they go, well, this is what we believed all along. Now that last stage hasn't happened yet, but the first three stages have been pretty predictable, and we've seen that actually happen from Fair Mormon and Scripture Central and so forth. And taking shots. Scripture Central not as much, I will have to say. Richard, since he's become the CEO basically of Scripture Central, it's mellowed quite a bit, but their promotion of the Mesoamerica setting has not wavered. I mean, they just recently came out with a whole thing about Hill Cumorah and how that's not really the Hill Cumorah in New York, and they've got some ideas of 4 or 5 other ones down in Central America, but nobody can decide which one it is, and none of them are hills anyway; they're all mountains. Anyway, but the interesting thing is that the Mesoamerica side has always refused to not only to invite us to come and speak at any of their events, and they don't really have that many events, really. I mean, compared to our events, they get 100 or 200 people maybe that show up, and we get like 7,500 people that show up. So there's a lot more energy and excitement about the Heartland research than the old tired Mesoamerica. The Mayans were not the Nephites, and the Nephites were not the Mayans, but they sort of lived among them, and nobody knows really who they were. They can't really put their finger on any kind of archaeological civilization that they can say, okay, this was the Nephites. I mean, the time frames don't match up, any of that. And we had a big get together some years ago where we had an individual in the church that actually said he would fund trying to get all of us together. If we could get Scripture Central and Fair Mormon and Interpreter Foundation and some of these other LDS apologetics groups to all get together and behind a common message of the Book of Mormon to the world, the good that we could do as a combined group would be astounding. And that's always been kind of my hope, is that we could do that. But we've got to know where it happened. And there's been lots of speculation about that, about where the Book of Mormon happened. And but we've, for 17 years, we have tried to invite I've actually had Richard Ferguson basically to come actually, and he spoke at our event in the spring of this year. We had a joint presentation that we did together, and but there's this group that tried to get us together. The gospel says that if you're not one, you're not mine, right? And in this particular case, in Book of Mormon geography, we're not one. We have numerous, over 150 different proposed geographies. Really, two of them have become kind of the de facto, the go-to, either the Mesoamerican model or the Heartland model. Those are the two primary ones that probably account for maybe 90% or 95% of the overall beliefs of members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. But we're still not one. And even though the attacks against each other have kind of died down. I mean, at first, when I first started it was violent. I mean, it was like, I was a snake oil salesman. I was, I was just in this for money and for all kinds of other, priestcrafty kind of things. And of course there was dire predictions that when people were going to get involved with the Heartland model, that they're going to find out when it's wrong. They're all going to leave the church in droves. They were predicting that would happen 15 years ago. And they're not very good prophets. I can tell you that because that hasn't happened. People don't base their testimonies on the geography of the Book of Mormon, but they do find that the testimonies are bolstered by truth. And when you can show forth evidences of the Book of Mormon that are consistent, that are truthful, that are consistent with Joseph Smith and the early brethren and the prophecies and the promises in the church, and you put all these things together, people appreciate that, and it actually does give people more of a reason to believe, a rational argument for their belief than they can get from the Mesoamerica, where the archaeology doesn't line up time frame wise. There was no massive destruction around the time of 400 AD. I mean, all that stuff. But the point is that there's never been a debate, at least since the Heartland model has come up. Now, there were debates back in early church history about the hemispheric model and so forth, and but there really hasn't been an official debate. So our good friend from Ward Radio, he decided that we were going to have a debate, and so they set up a debate up in where was that, in Sandy?
No,
West Jordan?
That was in
South Jordan or something?
Lehigh, west of
right.
Lehigh,
Yeah,
in Vineyard.
Yeah. Oh, Vineyard. That's where it was. Yeah. And so we had the first ever Heartland versus Mesoamerica debate. You can go on Word Radio. Cardinellis was the one that actually hosted that. Interestingly enough, there was a guy that was going to be arguing the Mesoamerica side, and he agreed with Luke Hansen, who was one of the moderators, I think, over at Word Radio. And he agreed, this other guy agreed to come and actually debate me. They asked me if I would do it. And I said, I'm not a debater. I've never debated before in my life. I mean, I've never trained for it. I've never studied debate or anything like that, but I think that we have the truth. And so I'm willing to go up and talk about that. And anyway, and this other guy, about 2 weeks before the debate was going to happen, I won't name any names because that's not that critical, but he basically left Luke Hansen, hanging. And so with 2 weeks to go before the event happened, he backed out and left. And Luke Hansen said, "Well, I will debate the Mesoamerican side." He says, "I'm kind of more leaning towards that anyway." He says, "And I'm going to get some great information from some of the top Mesoamerica proponents, and we're going to have this debate." So we did that about a week and a half ago.
Yeah, and a lot of people.
If you haven't seen it, did you bring that up, Bill, or
I did.
Where can they see it?
It is on Ward Radio, but there was some technical difficulties if you remember.
Yeah,
and so I think Cardin right now is rendering and editing the recording,
the official version.
The official version. Yeah. They're doing that now. And so I don't know exactly when that's going to get released.
I think if you just look up Ward Radio debate Rod Meldrum, you'll come up.
I think it'll pop up.
They have. I think somebody was just walking around with like an iPhone or something.
Yeah, it was one of the moderators too.
Yeah. But if you do see that, there's a second one that they did that had the Q&A at the end. And one thing I hate about debates is there's no time to actually go into any kind of depth or detail about anything. And so you just have to kind of make your statement, and this is what it is, but you can't back it up. And I don't like just giving the statement because I have no authority. I'm not a PhD. I mean, I'm not a scholar or whatever. I think I'm very passionate about this, and so I think I've learned a lot. And I would probably consider myself an expert, but I'm not a scholar in the sense that I don't have advanced degrees. But the point basically is that we ended up having this debate. And I got to give it to Luke. Luke is he's a well-studied debate. I think he's been coached in debating and so forth before. I think he's done some debating in the past, and he did a good job on the Mesoamerica side of kind of to show some of the weaknesses of the Heartland research that as he sees them. But I didn't have a chance to really go into detail as to explain why these weaknesses are not weaknesses at all, but actually are end up being really, strengths in support of the Book of Mormon. But anyway, we had a good time. It was a good debate. We walked away as friends. We went and had dinner together afterwards with Brill, and we all went out to
In-N-Out, yeah.
Yeah,
with Brad Whitbeck and Carden and Luke,
and Luke,
it was
and so forth.
It was a good time.
So it was a good time, and I would like to see more of that kind of thing. I don't really love the debate format, but I would love to take certain subjects, and in fact, that's one of the things that the Scripture Central, which was at the time was Book of Mormon Central, when we had this individual who paid for all of the Scripture Central, basically people, all the Mesoamerica advocates, not all of them, but a majority of them, a bunch of them, to come with Wayne and Jonathan and I and others back to Ohio. We spent 4 days back there, showed them our stuff. Then the idea was we were going to then all fly down to Mexico and go down to the southern Mexico and have them show us their best information, their best research. Unfortunately, several of them are actually employed by BYU. BYU being self-insured. They said Mexico is too dangerous, and we don't want to have this many of our people going down there in case something goes wrong. So their promised land is too dangerous to go to. I get that, but so we ended up having a 3 or 4 day event up in Zermatt Resort up in Midway, Utah, where they got to present their side of the best evidences and so forth that they have to us. And at that event, it was decided I actually. This is something that not hardly anybody knows. So I think the first time I probably ever mentioned it, but I had and still have a URL, a website, basically it's called Book of Mormon Answers. And I offered to donate that website, that URL, to a joint effort between Scripture Central and which was Book of Mormon Central at the time, and us, to be able to have a combined website, where really the top 2 or 3, I think the Baja model was also brought up in that particular one, but we had like about 15 or 20 individuals from the church headquarters, from administration, from the priesthood committee to the film and the scriptures committee and so forth. We had a bunch of different higher up administration people within the church that all came to this Zermatt Resort 3-day conference. And we all sat down about probably 10:30, 11 o'clock at the last evening and said, okay, so what can we do to become more one in this thing? Obviously, we've showed you our stuff. You showed us your stuff. Really, nobody was convinced one way or the other. From each side kind of held on to their own. But what we could do is put together, and I'd love to get your feedback. In fact, if you have any reaction on this, would love to have you put in the comments here down below your feedback. What would you like to see a website where you have the Heartland model and the Mesoamerican model, basically as the two primary, as Jonathan likes to talk about? He says multiple. What do you call it?
It's multiple working hypotheses.
Working hypotheses. That's right. Multiple working hypotheses. In other words, let's not have a website that says, okay, it definitely happened here or here. what we do is we let people provide questions about the Book of Mormon that they want to have answers, and it will be categorized into numerous different categories. From plants and animals to language and to everything involving the Book of Mormon. And then have each of the different sides. The Mesoamerica side would then put their best answer for that question, and then we would put our best answer, and we have them as a side-by-side comparison. And we talked about that, and they said, well, we think we could probably do that. That would be wonderful, and so forth. And while the church administration people were there, they all agreed to it. But then about 3 or 4 days later, when we actually got back with Jack Welch and Kirk Magleby at Scripture Central and so forth, and said, okay, I'm going to donate this Book of Mormon Answers website. We can, it's going to be neutral as far as, where we're going. Each side gets to basically put their best answers on their website. And they basically said, well, who's going to pay for that? And we said, well, we're going to pay for our side and you pay for your side. All you have to do is just answer the questions that people are, just random people are going to bring up. And we can bring up questions, and you can bring up questions as well. Whatever questions, we'll just put them all in categories. And they basically said, well, we haven't budgeted that and so forth, so we're not going to do it. So they backed out, and that's been kind of the situation. I don't think that they want to have a direct side-by-side comparison, and I get it. I mean, if I was them, I would probably not want to have a side-by-side comparison either. But the bottom line is that this debate was the first time that we've been able to actually have two people from different side, from the Mesoamerica side and the Heartland side, to be able to actually address some of the different questions that have both sides, I think, have their strong points and their weaknesses. But there's only one truth. I mean, the Book of Mormon didn't happen in both places. And I don't think that there's a way that we can reconcile that. So it's got to be one or the other. Although I'm very, in fact, I spent 2 days here in my home here with Lance Weaver, who has a new kind of hemispheric geography, as he's calling it. So anyway, there's lots of different ideas out there, brothers and sisters. I hope that as you learn more about this, the Lord has been very clear about how we can find the truth. You study it out in your mind. I think that means you watch podcasts, you read the Book of Mormon, you learn as much as you can about different models and things, and then after you've studied it out in your mind, then you ask the Lord, what's the truth? What is the truth? And according to the promise of Moroni, you can know the truth of all things. So that's really what it comes down to. My hope is that as you learn more about the Book of Mormon and things that and the Heartland research, that you find that it comes closer to the truth that you feel in your heart when you listen to Joseph Smith's statements, when you look at the archaeology, the plants and animals, the linguistics, all the entire package, the prophecies and the promises that are contained in the Book of Mormon about a Latter-day Nation, that as you do so, that you'll find that the Heartland research actually provides you with a more confidence, and that confidence will allow you to then begin to be more come outside of yourself and actually present this information to those who are interested in the gospel, those who need to know about the ancient history of America and the Book of Mormon, and learn the gospel portions of that as well. So that's our hope. That's always been my main goal, is to bring the truth of the Book of Mormon to the world in a much bigger way. It's pretty sad to kind of think that less than 1% of the population of the earth even knows about the Book of Mormon. I'd love to see that go up to 10%, 15, 20, 50%, and eventually have pretty much the entire world know about the Book of Mormon. I don't know if we're going to be able to get to that point before Christ gets here, but we'll see on that. And then just the last couple of things. Brill, you have anything else you want to throw in there?
I just want to back up what you're saying. I think, like my wife, for example, she can care less where the Book of Mormon took place. She just knows that she has a testimony of it. She loves that we have a restored gospel, and she likes to dig deep and go to find things that are in the Book of Mormon that she can, cross reference to Isaiah and cross reference to all these other locations. And if you open up her scriptures, because she's, I'm a convert, and she has her scriptures from when she was a little girl, and they're all marked up, and those scriptures are falling apart. Can barely put them together
Yeah.
because of how often she would go in and check it, and I think it's just important for us to recognize what I loved about the debate was that at the end of the debate, we all went out to In-N-Out and we had dinner, and we're all having a good time. We're having a conversation. We're chatting about our life, and we're chatting about our testimony of the Book of Mormon. And it's like Luke Hansen just had a debate with you, and we're able to sit down and have dinner together and be able to enjoy each other's company. And in Mexico, there's a saying, and it's called convivir. Convivir means to live together, like being together as a family or as friends, and enjoying each other's company, in conversation, in food, and just being together, just enjoying each other's company. And so I loved that we did that. I think it just allows us to, at the end of the day, we're all children of God, and we all want to share the gospel and bolster each other's testimonies. And so
Yeah.
I love that.
You bet. Well, there's just one or two last things that I wanted to make sure that we just touch on. So this last year, we've got. I just want to tell you about what's coming up in 2025. So we've got some big things coming up here. Just give you a little sneak preview of some of the things that are coming up. Number one, as you know, this last year has been the Book of Mormon year. So we've had that. We hope that if you don't already have a copy of the annotated edition of the Book of Mormon, it is by far and away the most advanced. I would consider it to be the finest and most detailed version, or I should say, edition of the Book of Mormon in print. And so we want to continue to study the Book of Mormon every year. But this has been the Book of Mormon year this past year. So hopefully this has been helpful as you've had your study of the Book of Mormon. But coming up in 2025, the church is moving now to the Doctrine and Covenants, and we have been busy. This is specifically David Hocking, who is the managing editor, basically, of the annotated Book of Mormon and all the annotated series. So that's the Book of Jasher and the Book of Enoch and the Book of the 5 books of Moses and the New Testament and so forth. So we have the whole series of these amazing annotated editions of the scriptures and some of the apocryphal writings. But this is a brand new one, and I'm really excited about this. David Hocking has just even outdone himself even again on this one.
He really has.
This is
so good.
So, a lot of times as I've read the Doctrine and Covenants and gone through the Doctrine and Covenants, I tend to not study things in the order that they come in the book. I actually study by subject. So when I'm interested in a particular subject, then I'll start looking stuff up and I'll go into those sections and so forth. So I'm not really as I haven't been as interested in that. Just rotely reading, section 1, section 2, section 3, and just going through it. Now I have done that a couple of times just because it's a good way to start off, your knowledge base, but I haven't for many years done that. And with scripture notes, you can actually do some other really great things there. I don't have my scripture notes up here right now, but bottom line, so that's another great way to study it. But one of the things I always wanted to be able to do is, this is going to be a little bit of a strange little side note here, but those of you who are kind of older, like I'm, I think Carden calls us the stripling boomers.
That's right.
Okay. So those who are about my kind of same age, around 60 years old or so now, we were teenagers when the very first Star Wars, the was it not volume 5, but episode 5 or whatever
Yeah.
came out, which was the first one. And then I've always wanted to be able to take all the Star Wars, the entire
Trilogy.
Trilogy. Well, it's not a trilogy.
Oh, it's not. There's
The entire
saga.
Saga, and watch it from the first one as it happens chronologically, and go through and watch all of the different ones. Return of the Jedi and blah 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 and so forth and so on, and A New Hope and anyway, I can't remember all of them, but anyway. I would love to do that sometime, but I think it'd probably take about 2 days to do.
There's been theaters that have done that.
And
it goes for a long time.
Yeah, and in fact, I think my wife even got me the entire DVD set of all of the Star Wars stuff. Anyway, the reason why I'm bringing that up is because I like to be able to learn things from a chronological standpoint. It's really important to be able to go back to the original source documents, the original source things, what was happening when these things were going on, right? And that for me has been one of my favorite things to try to do, or things I've wanted to do, and I've never been able to do it. It's possible because you can go into the Doctrine and Covenants and just look up the date that Joseph Smith received each revelation, and you read those in the chronological order. But David Hawking has done something, and I can't wait for this year. I'm going to eat this up. This is going to be awesome. But it's got the Revelations of Joseph Smith Jr. So it's not called the Doctrine and Covenants because it's not in the same layout or format as the Doctrine and Covenants. But this is essentially all of Joseph Smith's revelations in chronological order, along with historical notations and historical information that tells you what's going on in Joseph Smith's life from his journals or other people's journals or church history or whatever, that kind of tells you a little bit of a background of what's going on in Joseph Smith's life at the time that these revelations are flowing to him from the Lord. And it's just the way he's got this put together is just phenomenal. Of course, it's got the standard. The words in red are God or Christ. The words in blue are prophets and angels. It has the reformatting. So if it's actually a direct quote by the Lord, which most of this actually is the Lord, so it's almost all red, but you'll actually see that going on here. That has a section number for a quick find. If you want to know what the section number is, like section 1 in this book is on page 137, because it wasn't the first one that was received. It was received later on. But section number 2 is the first one that actually was received. Now this is kind of cool here, but one of the things I love about this also,
I've enjoyed this. I bought this at Expo,
yeah,
and I've been going through it since then with scripture notes actually, and kind of looking at them side by side, and I've been geeking out.
I tell you, this is one of the things that kind of maybe it's not such a big thing, but for me it seems like it is a big thing. This is the date, section number, and location of the revelation. So, for example, the first revelation that Joseph Smith received that was actually in the Doctrine and Covenants is clear back from September 21st of 1823. So this is only 3 years after the first vision. This is before the Book of Mormon even existed yet, as far as its the 1830 original first version. Joseph Smith's age at the time was 17 years old. So think about it. Think of somebody that you know that's around 17 years old, and section 2 of the Doctrine and Covenants, which is on page 1 of this edition, was actually received in Manchester, New York, and Joseph Smith was 17 years old at the time. The next revelation is he was 22 years old, and it goes through so you can see his age, how it changes. February 4th, 1829, Joseph Smith is now 23 years old. That's section 4 on page 10 of this book, and it was received in Harmony Township, Pennsylvania. So you'll see, here's the revelation right here. And then in the kind of the greenish colored background is some of like this has got stuff from Joseph Smith's history, or these are historical background information of what's going on in Joseph Smith's life. And this, my brothers and sisters, is going to supercharge your study of Come Follow Me this year as you study the Doctrine and Covenants. So it's not going to be exactly in the same format as the churches Come Follow Me, because they're going to follow the Doctrine and Covenants, section by section. But you can use this to study each of the different sections And I mean, look at this historical, handwriting notes and so forth about Revelations and who was involved with it. This is John Whitmer, and the best information that we have from that. You see how much red words there are here. Hopefully, you can see this in this camera here. This is summer of 1828. This is talking about the two sets of plates, the records that were in the stone box, and the records that were in the Hill Cumorah. This is from Jonathan Neville. It's Joseph Smith Sr. by unknown artist and so forth here. But just you have all this background information. So listen, we just barely got these in about probably 3 weeks ago. I was at a Christmas gift show in Spanish Fork, and there's a ton of people who wanted to get these, and we're buying these so that they can supercharge their Come Follow Me this year. So if you take a look at it, it's just fantastic. This doesn't have a lot of Book of Mormon geography stuff in it. It does have some things that were taken out, though, by some of our church historians. Like, for example, the word Cumorah is here. Okay. When Joseph Smith talks about it, that was the Wentworth letter. The parts that were taken out in the Saints book and so forth, we've put it back in because Joseph Smith said that those were revelatory things. Actually, the Zelph account is actually in here because it also, the expedition of Zion's camp and so forth here is talking about the Zelph revelation that Joseph Smith had. So there's a few things that are kind of heartland related stuff. But it's also church historically factual stuff as well. So this is like an early painting of the Liberty Jail. So if this is what's going on here in section 121, this is the Liberty Jail today, and so forth. So you can actually see kind of a little bit more of the history as it's unfolding, as well as the revelations that are happening. We've got this on a special thing on our bookstore. If you go to bookofmormonevidence.org, go to the bookstore, and you can pick up a copy of that for this coming year. You want to get your copies now. I think that the quantity is somewhat limited, so I don't know how many of those we have. I don't know if we're going to have enough for everybody that wants one. But if you want to grab those now, I think they're like, I don't know, do you have the website up?
Yeah, I do actually. It's right here.
Maybe bring that up and see,
Yeah,
because we have a special Christmas sale on the annotated Book of Mormon, but this one we just got these in, so
it's on sale for $59.95.
Okay, so basically $60,
and the Book of Mormon annotated version is also $49.95 right now.
Yeah, that's the cheapest we've ever had it. The Book of Mormon, we were able to get a bigger print run on that, so we usually buy those 10,000 at a time, and these, the Revelations, we're not sure how that's all going to go. So I think David Hawking originally started off with 5,000 copies. So I don't know how long those will last. But we may have to get a couple more printings over the course of this year, but we'll see how it goes. Anyway, and then finally, and last but not least, I just want to just let people know. Everybody, I really appreciate all you've done for us. But we do have a couple of dates if you want to put these in your calendar for this coming year. So our expos this coming year, I would like to apologize for our fall expo. Ryan and I were looking. I think Ryan checked for about 40 different venues to try to find a venue that we could fit in. That for our event, our expo in September or October. So, but we could not find one. We finally were able to find a brand new venue, the venue at the ranches in Eagle Mountain, but it was less than half the size that we really need for that, and it was just crowded. I mean, we had like 80 parking places, and we had like 500 cars. And we basically shut down the city of
the little
Eagle
community
Mountain for 3 days.
People
were parking all up and down the streets and the residential areas, and we had a shuttle service actually to be able to carry people to a stake center that was just a few blocks away. But it was kind of a fiasco. Those of you who came, we sure appreciate you coming and hanging in there with us. There was no elevators to the second floor, which is another problem. And there was just, the whole venue was just tiny. And anyway, so long story short is that that's not going to happen again, hopefully. So this coming spring, we have our Spring Expo at Larry Miller Conference Center at the Salt Lake Community College in Sandy. This is going to be April the 17th to the 19th, 17th, 18th, and 19th of 2025. So again, remember that. That's April 17th through the 19th. Put that down on your calendars if you'd like to come to it, or we may actually be streaming some portions of it live. We're going to see how that goes. And then our Fall Expo is going to be at the Davis County Convention Center in Layton, Utah. These are both much larger facilities and can handle our expos on the Book of Mormon. So that's going to be September the 4th, 5th, and 6th. This is a lot earlier than normal because, again, we're having a heck of a time with these venues trying to get them. The Utah has become the new expo and conference capital. I think, it used to be, back east, and then it became LA, and then it became like Las Vegas. It was the expo capital, and other places in the east. But Utah has become really a place that a lot of companies around the world, and especially in the United States, want to come for their conferences. So it's really been like pulling teeth to try to find a place. Anyway, so to finish up, basically, I want to thank all of you for your support. As you know, we don't typically or generally ask for donations to support what we're doing here. I've been really blessed to be able to have the financial capability to just continue to move it forward just by our educational materials and our events and those kinds of things. So we don't ask for donations. Most places do. What we do ask, though, is that if you like to get more educated, you want to have educational materials, the books, the DVDs, come on a tour with me. And Brill might be on there with us too, and a lot of these tours. Those are the things that we do, so that you don't actually have to make a donation. You're getting an actual something of value, a good or service, basically, for whatever money that you put our way. So we are very careful with that. We try not to waste it, and we're trying to always continue to increase our reach and be able to do that. But all of that does take money. So if you would like to support us in a way, but we don't have a way for you to donate to us, the best way to donate is to help with getting these materials out there. Get somebody a Christmas present of the streaming website. It's only $7.97 a month or whatever. The streaming website is really one of our best ways to get this information out to people. Look at it this way: a lot of people will pay a little bit of extra money on a YouTube or something like that if they'll pay that little bit of extra to have YouTube without commercials. Okay, this is basically how you can see our content without commercials, and like
without
I said,
censorship.
Yeah, and no censorship and so forth. It's we have the premium. Let's see. I'm not sure if we're still doing that right at the moment, but it's down to like $6 a month. It's $72 a year.
I have it up. I have it up right now.
Okay, so that when is that through? That's available through when?
That's available basically through the end of the year.
Okay, so through the end of the year. If you'd like to sign up as a premium annual member of our streaming website, which again, when we get it all put back together in next week or two, it'll have somewhere around 1,700 presentations. We've got some really cool technology that we're looking at, possibly including that, so that you'll be able to search every video. Every single word in the video would be searchable. And so if you want to find out, for example, about horses in the Book of Mormon, or you want to find out about Hebrew, language, or Hebrew characters, or artifacts, or sites, or whatever, you can just look up those sites, and it will actually pull up every video in our entire video library that mentions that word somewhere in the presentation. How cool would that be? And then when you click on it, it actually will take you to that video at that spot where that word is, and it will back up about 10 seconds, and then it will just start to play it from that point. So I think it's going to be a really cool, kind of like scripture notes. It's going to be a really nice way to actually do a deep dive study on the Book of Mormon with over 450 experts on every aspect of the Book of Mormon. So that's the streaming video website, faithfully exploring relevant LDS topics of our time. And those topics basically are Book of Mormon, Signs of the Times, self-reliance and health, science and religion, and so forth. In fact, Brill, we had some people asking about, why do you have all this other stuff like science and religion and self-reliance and health and so forth? What does that have to do with the Book of Mormon?
It has a lot to do with the Book of Mormon, because I think it comes down to, when we read the Book of Mormon and when we read the teachings of the prophets, and especially now going into this next year, like typically there's a certain prophet that we learn from, right? That we really go deep dive into. And it's important to recognize that, they teach us about self-reliance. They teach us to love our country and the Constitution. And I've grown to, like, back here, if you see, there's a painting back here of maybe I'll take a picture and put it up. But it shows the love that we have in this promised land for everything that's happened in this nation. The Constitution, in a way, already was in this nation, in this land, before the creation of this country. If you read the Book of Mormon, you'll see that, and how it's tied. Yep. So I don't know. I love everything that we have in the streaming website, because it allows us to go deeper into all of the things that we should be going deep into according to the teachings of the Book of Mormon.
Yeah. And you don't have to sit there and watch the commercials on YouTube and so forth. We try to put as much information as we can on that, but we do withhold some information to leave on the streaming website for those who are subscribers, because they're a little more committed to learning than somebody who's just randomly watching YouTube and so forth. But also it helps to support the entire infrastructure, because a portion of that $6 a month, 30% of that goes to the administration of the websites and that kind of stuff, because it's expensive. And then about 30% of it goes to helping to get information out to people, so marketing of the website. But 30% of it also goes to all the speakers. As you click on and you watch different speakers and so forth, that will count as a watch. And then at the end of every quarter, we take all of the watches at the end of that, and we take this 30% of the subscription funds, and we send it out to them based on how many views they get. So it actually helps to support all of our speakers and the entire infrastructure. So we really appreciate if you want to support us, that's the best way to do it. Utilize that. You can stream it from anywhere. And then the very final thing here, I mentioned about we're heading just in about 4 weeks from now. I'm going to be heading out. I'm hosting a tour to Australia, the South Pacific Wonders trip with Legacy Tours and Travel. And I'm really excited about this, because I've heard, and don't quote me on this, but I've heard that there's some evidence that the Book of Mormon people actually made it to Australia. And maybe this is going to start a new Australian model of the Book of Mormon. But actually, this Jonathan Neville was in Brisbane at the temple there, and one of the temple workers came up to him and asked him where he was from and so forth. And he says, "Oh, you're the Book of Mormon, one of the Book of Mormon guys that worked with Rod and Wayne and so forth." And he said, "Yeah." He says, "Well, that here in Australia, we have evidence that the Book of Mormon may have happened here." And Jonathan said, "Really? Evidence in the Book of Mormon happening here in Australia?" He says, "Yeah." He says, in the Book of Mormon, there's this guy by the name of Gidgananai, I think it is.
Yes.
He says, and that is where we Aussies came up with the term of Grania. G'day. It's a derivative of Gidgananai, basically is Grania. So that's okay. That's Jonathan Neville still. But anyway, so So we're going to go there. I'm actually, and just really quickly, just want to just run through. If you would like to join us, you're going to have to join almost immediately, because I don't know if we can even get any more people into the tour at this point. It's a very small tour, it's a very personal tour. So if you want to just come and hang out with me and some other friends and so forth, we're going to be doing this. But it's going to be January the 22nd. So we're about just a little over a month away. I'm going to be going to fly. First off, we're going to go straight up to the North Island of New Zealand in Auckland, and go to see some of the different sites there in Auckland, the city of Sales, the highest Polynesian population in the world, and so forth. Then we're going to be going to Rotorua, and that is the Maori capital of New Zealand. And then we're going to be going to having some really cool food and things there. Going to Tipua, New Zealand's premier Maori cultural and geothermal experience, and I've got some pictures I'm going to show you really quickly about that. National Carving School, and etc. Then we're going to take a short flight down to Christchurch, which is in the southern. This is the southern island of New Zealand, and spend some time in Christchurch and go check all that stuff out. We're going to be doing the Queenstown as well, down there, and then from there we're going to be doing a sheepdog demonstration. It's going to be a good time. Then we're going to be going from Queenstown and spending a little bit more time there, and then we fly up to Cairns, Australia, on the Great Barrier Reef. This is kind of northeastern part of Australia, and then we're spending some time on the Great Barrier Reef, and then a couple of days there, and then we're flying from Cairns down to Sydney. So I have a bunch of friends. I want to do a little shout out to my friends there in Brisbane and also in Sydney. So unfortunately, the tour doesn't allow for us to do presentations and so forth, off of that, because the tour is pretty much it takes up all the time. But we have some dear friends in Brisbane that said that they want to set up some presentations and so forth while I'm there. I'm going to have to do that at a different time. So anyway, and then we basically spend a couple of days in Sydney, and then we come back on the 18th, February the 8th. So there's that. And then the last one, this is just some of the sites that we're going to go see. This is the thermal area there in New Zealand. There's a tram that goes up, and you can see the ocean there, basically coming into these bays. Really pretty, that area there. You can kind of see some of that there. So again, if you want to join me, we're going to have a great time with this. It's going to be summertime in the middle of the winter up here in America. It's going to be summertime in Australia and New Zealand. So I'm excited about that warm weather. This is Cairns, some of the areas there that we're going to go see, and then you can see there's Cairns up there in the north, and then Sydney down on the south end. And that kind of gives you an idea of where we're going to be going with that. And then we have one last tour, and that is basically this coming. It's going to be October the 6th to the 21st. Now, usually this is when I do the Chronology Book of Mormon tour, but this is actually working out to be better timing for us to go to, now get this, Tunisia. We're going to be going to Tunisia and Malta and southern Italy. So we're going to be going to Jerba, the island of Jerba. We're going to be going to some of the oldest synagogue in the world outside of Jerusalem itself. We're going to be talking about the Phoenicia ship and the Phoenicians and who these Tunisians were and what they might have had to do with Mulek. There's some really interesting possible connections between the Mulekites of the Book of Mormon and how they might have gotten from Israel basically over to America through Tunisia. This is the reason why we were there meeting with the Tunisian ambassador and so forth, but we're going to go over there. We have some really cool things going on there. We're going to be going to Malta and then southern Italy. So this is if you want to know more about that, you can go on Legacy Tours and Travel. Find out more about it. We're actually going to be doing I'm going to be doing a little more of a podcast here, just about this tour. It's going to be phenomenal. If you want to learn more about Knights Templar and the traditions there, we're going to be going to the Rome, Italy temple. And this is kind of my stomping grounds. I wasn't in Rome on my mission, but I was in Italy on my mission. So we're going to go have a good time together. If you want to join me, that would be fantastic. All right, Brill, I think we're done.
We are. This was kind of a long, podcast, but there was just so much has happened throughout this entire year that it takes a lot. So if you stuck around until this time, thanks so much for coming.
Yeah.
We're just super excited for this next year.
And buckle in. It's going to be a fantastic year. We've got some changes in our government going on, and hopefully there'll be a little less wokeism, and so we'll see how that all goes. Hopefully we're not in World War III.
Well, I don't think
before that time happens. Anyway, thanks everybody. We sure love and appreciate you. And I once got an email from a dear, he's become a good friend of mine. That's Keith Merrill, and he puts at the end of his emails, he puts onward and upward. And I haven't really. In fact, maybe we ought to have a contest and what would be the best outro.
Yeah, at the end of this.
For me, I'm never quite sure how to quite end that. But onward and upward, folks. And I hope you have a wonderful Christmas and a happy New Year. We're thankful for so many blessings that we've had this last year, and we want to thank the Lord for those things. Take care.